Hi, everybody. It's Martha Creek, marthacreek.com to contact me. There's also podcast, videos, some material, all free there at that website. And it is for dedicated and devoted to getting these teachings, empowered, transformational, conscious shifting teachings to the whole of humanity. So that is my vision. And I believe that you're a co-inspirator with me too to make that happen. Whatever brought you here today, I bow to that. So I want to look at fear and what the rap that fear gets, and to see how else we could see that, how else we could get a different framework around it. So I bet you've heard lately, and many times throughout your life, to don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like, down with fear. Like it's possible. See, I can't even say it without laughing because fear is wired in us. So I read or was listening to a podcast or something this year, and it said it would be the same thing as telling people, instead of don't be afraid, we're essentially saying, get confident, stupid. Get confident, silly, get confident, build confidence. It's like, well, you go first. So everybody's building confidence at the speed of their abilities to do it. And I believe that there's some radical shifting we can do in that. So then I look at, and I've quoted as saying in some of the teaching, some of the videos there you'll see is like things I've tried to reduce things that I've watched humanity struggle with and really navigate the winds of, that can be reduced to power, value, and safety. And this desire to feel that, the desire to be in the presence of that, and the insanity, the chaos of thinking that it exists outside of ourselves. So what, just maybe, so just for today, take off your spiritual hat and take off I know hat, and just imagine being open at the top to see, what if I could get a different understanding of this? If I could just get a hair different framework around this that could literally transform my consciousness and therefore transform my reality, my experience, my life. So what if it's not safety then is not about not being afraid? What if it's not safety that keeps us from being afraid? Then what are we going to call it? So I don't use the word love. I don't use it on purpose. I think it's a grossly, mysteriously misunderstood. And I can tell in observing and in my own experience that our definitions of love was formed from a 3-year-old experience and mentality that could be summed up as this: it's love when I get what I want. And when I don't get what I want, it's not love. So think about it then like a mother hen. So I'm a farm girl, and my family raises chickens. So been around them most of my life. So think about God as a mother hen. So that means that a mother hen does not keep foxes from being dangerous. A mother hen cannot keep a fox from being dangerous. A mother hen keeps foxes from being what determines how they're going to experience their life. So that then God can't keep and doesn't keep dangerous things out of the world. But then through God, in the presence of God, it determines, and we can redetermine how we're going to experience the unbelievably beautiful gift of being alive, of being in life. So then God, the mother hen, gathers up all of the downy, feathered, little fun, precious, vulnerable little ones under God's protective wings. And we know that's where we belong. We know that's our place because we feel better there. We'll feel cared for. We feel of shelter, of warmth. And faith in God does not bring safety. faith in God, just consider now. Just consider. This may bump up against what you formerly believed. And I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm asking you to consider. And the consequences of keeping your belief system, the consequence of keeping your BS. So it's not faith in God that brings us safety. The fox still exists. Danger still exists. So danger is not optional. Danger's included. Danger's part of the lay of the land. But fear becomes maybe a little more optional. Danger, yes, not optional. Fear may be optional. So how that I can have fear and fear not have me. So then consider then that the opposite of fear isn't bravery. That the opposite of fear is connection, is love, oneness, atonement, alignment. You might call it love. That the opposite of fear is love. You've heard that, some of you that study the Course in Miracles and other scriptures and traditions. The opposite of fear is love. In the scripture, Paul tells us that perfect love casts out fear. So think about this, and who's your Herod? So, and then in response to the Herods of our own life, to my Herods, to your Herods, the King Herod, in response to very real dangers of the world, we have an invitation, and I believe a calling and an assignment for me. I feel it as a invitation and a calling, as a purpose, as people of faith, which is to respond in love, to respond as love. And only you know what that would mean. It doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It doesn't mean that you've got to stay in places or have them over to lunch or marry them or stay in a marriage with them. But how you could take sensible, sane action and not shut down from love, not to shut down the heart, and not to shut down the power of that love. So, for example, there's a quote, a story actually about Martin Luther, and he was asked a question one day. If he knew the world was about to end, what would he do? So what would you do if you knew the world was about to end? Martin Luther King famously answered, "If I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, then I would plant an apple tree today." I love that. I really love that because it is defiantly hopeful. It's defiantly sensible, radically purposeful. As though he actually listened to Jesus when Jesus said, "Do not be afraid." Don't be afraid. Be anxious of nothing. Be still. Be still and know. So if the world were ending, we could respond by loving the world. Imagine. Because if the Herods of this world, the dangers of the world, the foxes, whatever your foxes are that surround you, that surround me, my perceived foxes, they don't get to determine my heart. The dangers don't get to determine the contours of my heart. And they're not going to direct and contour and occupy. They're not going to represent the content of my mind either. And those fears do not have to make up the full content of your mind either. So we can plant trees, cast out the demons of our mind, cast out the heaviness, unburden our heart, and heal. We can squeeze every single drop out of living this life. And you may have heard the quote, at the end of the life, we'll be dancing out or carted out, to squeeze every single life, every single drop out of this life, out of living this life. So, pardon the expression, but to hell with fear. It does nothing to actually keep bad things from happening. It just steals the joy. It steals appreciation. And it steals and blocks us and blinds us to the good things that are in us and the good things that are around us. So, how about we dial up our loving the world? How about we dial up loving ourselves? How would that look in you? Where to begin? So think about then as we meet crisis in life, and certainly major crisis, whatever it could be, death, divorce, separations, losses, disease, disfigurement, injury, accident, any kind of catastrophic something. The things that are seriously and often result in emotional overwhelm. Then what technique can we actually use in these experiences where life suddenly begins to look like a nightmare, or we're suddenly more overwhelmed? How then to relieve this pain and suffering and to diminish it. So the minimum techniques for doing this in this time of loss, to offset and to meet these feelings of powerlessness and the permanency of that. The permanency the mind gets in powerlessness when it thinks, when it's stopped, and when it thinks that it cannot do anything about something. And this phenomena of being stopped, this phenomena that we can bring some circuit break to this, so we can stop this permanence, the fact that one is powerless and cannot change event. Even in that, we can accept what I cannot change. That is partially responsible for this sudden onset, this acute upset. And how to handle it will depend on our orientation. It'll depend on the knowledge we have and of our willingness to go about and to meet these experiences newly and very radically new in some cases, instead of unleashing a storm of negative feelings, shock, disbelief, denial, anger, guilt, grief, self-blame, self-hate, recrimination, resentments, abandonment, rage itself, rage at them, blame on self, blame self, mad at God, rage at God, self-pity, mad at the world, as Mama would say. And then the degree then that I get into that, then certainly more and more negative emotions are going to surface and come all at once. Sometimes in a sequence. It's like they've already formed their belief system. So it's not just a thought, but an entire belief system, an entire story, if you will, superimposed on that. So this massive overwhelm of these is so common when we've lost our connection, our ability to observe. Then we naturally are going to experience the shock, the disbelief of this, and to tend to then lean in toward more negative, if you will, direction, then it has a tendency to pull the rest of us with it. So the grief over loss then seems to bring with it guilt, senses of hopelessness, the fear of the future, any desire to change the whole thing, like all or nothing, and then it's one drama after another drama after another drama. So a massive unleashing of energy, a massive unleashing of energy. So let's think about then that it's not the event that happened, it's not the events that happen in the world, or even what we think has happened in the world that is the problem. It's the way we feel about it. Who cares about the facts? Facts don't mean anything in and of themselves. It is our emotional reaction to facts. Our emotional reaction to facts that we can care about. And so therefore the only thing we really ever have to handle, the only thing we ever really have to handle about the events in our lives is our feelings. Our feelings come from our feelings, our attitudes, our beliefs, and then ultimately our thinking. But then feelings are the first thing we're often aware of, even when we can't get to the thought that caused it. So then in this variety of emotion, the energy of the emotion, the acute, catastrophic feeling of what the event has caused, to begin to think about how even what seems like it's unbearable or unsurmountable is all coming out of this energy field, an energy field of emotion. So once you come out on the other side of it, once you can come out on the other side of it, and even to observe that this is all coming from like an emotional tornado of sorts, life adjusts itself. Even in all the losses, life will adjust itself. Something will come in to fill the vacuum of life. Life goes on. So if I'm a carpenter, then I go on doing carpenting work even though I've lost a thumb. It's essential to doing it all of my life. So I don't have to learn carpentry again. It's not the problem. It's really not where I'm going to start another business. Or how am I going to start earning money again? Those are simple. Once the emotions are out of the way, once the emotions are observed, transcended, understood, set aside, then life presents the solution to all problems. So I'd love it today if you could just accept the fact of this, or my word for this, and then give it a fair test. That you don't have to do anything about external events. You don't have to figure it out. You cannot make any progress. You cannot get any relief by looking at the thoughts because they are endless at times. And you're not really going to get much headway in handling it by looking at specific emotions either. But you will get a very, very profound effect if you allow yourself to focus on the energy that's just below the upset. The energy field that's just below the emotion. As you catch the experience earlier and earlier, you'll get that this energy is diffuse. It is nameless. It is like a pressurized gas can, a pressure cooker. It's seeking a release. It's seeking this pressurized emotional field. The emotion of the energy has been accumulating for lifetimes, your lifetime, lifetimes, millennia, since the beginning of creation. And up till this point in time, now it has an out. So this event that has happened in life has opened up the portal. It has opened the gates. It has opened the doorway. It has opened this container of compressed, suppressed, depressed, disowned emotional energy that is now using the opportunity, this life event, to escape. So think about then, once the barn door is open, all the animals run out. They know how to get out of the way. And we know how to get out of the way of these running animals. Some way to cut through it quickly is to accept the fact that you cannot escape the experience. And trying to escape the experience only prolongs it. It would seem like the mind will try to figure out ways to escape it as though that will reduce the pain. Actually, that the pain then comes from the resistance. The pain comes from the resisting itself. Then the pain then is magnified, prolonged. So we'll use somewhat the same techniques we do with physical pain, where we surrender, we let go of resisting the energy field, we just sit down and let go resisting and choose to be with it. Choose to be with it. And the faster we open it up, the faster we take the lid off, the faster that energy is out, the quicker the experience will be over. Instead of dragging it out endlessly, agonizingly, perpetually, where maybe hours instead of weeks, or hours or minutes even instead of days or months or years. In fact, a whole lifetime can be transcended as we begin to observe this as the energy, an energy, that emotion is energy in motion. So how to be with that energy differently, and to know that our safety does not lie in the external, that danger is always going to be part of the lay of the land here, part of our human learning processes. In my response and my relationship to danger, in my relationship and my response to losses, there's real potential there. See for yourself. Blessings and all power as you practice navigating crisis differently and processing losses differently and shifting your relationship to life as it's fulfilling itself, and not to make problems out of what is normal part of our human learning processes. And every chance you get, anytime you think of it, get under the mother hen of God wings and rest. And rest. Be at rest. Peace to you. Much love. MarthaCreek.com